Welcome to Aim to Float, San Antonio's story of a TPWD co-op grant program. My name is Sarah Coles, and I'm the Executive Director of the Texas Children in Nature Network, and we're excited to have you with us today. We are recording our session today. Thank you for joining us. Please mute yourselves and turn off your camera for the presentation to save bandwidth for all of our attendees and for a clean recording. I'll be monitoring the chat, and so will our tech helper, and we'll be able to share questions with our presenters. Amalia is running tech for us today. Thank you so much, Amalia. As I said, we're recording. If you're uncomfortable with your name showing, you can hover over the three dots and change your name and just let Amalia know. And also, if your name doesn't match what you registered with, if you could change it so we can make sure we have you on our attendance. If you are needing a certificate, you will need to email the address in the email that you got with the Zoom link, and we'll be able to provide you a certificate. I'd like to welcome our speakers today, Grant Ellis, Lynn Kenton, and Sarah Sharp with the San Antonio Parks and Recreation Department. Thank you so much for joining us, and take it away. And now I'm sharing my screen, so I will get us started.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. I want to take a moment to thank the Texas Children in Nature Network for having us today. Sarah and her staff for coordinating this. This is San Antonio's story of a co-op grant program, and we'll be talking a little bit more about that. Again, I'm Lynn Kenton. I'm the administrator for the Parks and Recreation Department, and I'm joined with my co-presenters, Grant Ellis, who's our Natural Resources Manager. He's our Division Manager for Natural Resources. And Sarah Sharp, who's our newly promoted assistant to the director. She was formerly the recreation manager over that division when this program was implemented. So just to get an introduction to the program, next slide. You are hopefully all here today to learn about this program, Aim to Float, that we implemented as part of TPW's Community Outdoor Outreach Program co-op grants. So we're going to be talking about how we implemented a unique outdoor recreation experience for youth in historically underserved communities with low income and communities of color in San Antonio. During this session, we are hoping that you will learn about how we implemented the program itself and some challenges, some successes, some lessons learned, both in the grant process and in the implementation of the program. And so there were three main components to the program. If you hadn't caught on from the photos that you've already seen, there was kayaking and water safety. There's archery, as seen in this picture here. And there's also a conservation and nature education component. So that's where we get Aim to Float, because we have the archery and the kayaking with the floating. So with that, I'm going to let my colleagues take it away and talk about each of the program components.
Great. Thank you, Lynn. Hi, everybody. I'm Grant Ellis. I'm the Natural Resources Manager for the Parks and Recreation Department. Can we get the next slide, sir? So I'm going to talk quickly about kayaking and water safety. Obviously, for this program, we had a heavy emphasis and focus on safety. For various things. We had kids practicing archery, we had kids on the water, and so safety was paramount for us as we began to put this together. A lot of the children that came out for this program had never been out on the water, had never been in a kayak before. Some of them weren't comfortable in water, period, right? And in fact, not all of our instructors had even been in kayaks initially before this program came along. And so making sure that everybody was trained and well educated in water safety and kayak safety was going to be critical for the success of it. So we implemented sort of a twofold training. which included training for our guides and our parks employees who were out on the water. They were trained and steeped in water safety and kayak safety with certified kayak instructors from the San Antonio River Authority. A handful of our guides also completed online paddle sport safety training through the American Canoe Association. And then the students themselves were trained indoors first at the San Antonio Natatorium at an indoor pool that we have here in San Antonio before actually being taken out onto the water. We made sure that they were outfitted with the right size kayaks, with right size paddles, with personal flotation devices, the life vests, and we made sure they all had water bottles in the kayaks as well before they went out on the water. We had 2 guided excursions along the river. Each day that the kids were out there, we made sure at least 4 lifeguards were out on the water at all times with the students when they were paddling. We also made sure that we were rotating lifeguards in and out of the water on a regular basis after each trip onto the water to make sure that the lifeguards themselves, who were part of the recreation side of the house for the San Antonio Parks and Recreation Department, so they didn't get too tired, being out in the sun and paddling up and down the river. We made sure that the groups were manageable group sizes between 10 and 20 students. And we kept the distance that they were paddling between 1 mile and 1.5 miles. So, we wouldn't get too far out onto the river and have people get too exhausted. So there was a lot of thought and training that went into the kayak and water safety component of it to make sure that the kids felt comfortable on the water and nobody got hurt. And I think it was a success. So next slide.
Okay, yeah, I'm gonna kind of just talk about the archery a little bit. So archery is still relatively new to us here in San Antonio. We really hadn't been implementing that at all. And so we did start implementing it a few years ago. Staff were trained by Texas Parks and Wildlife, and so we invested in a small bit of equipment so we could have it to rotate through to centers. We did find that probably over 85 of our staff had never actually even participated in archery before we even brought it to the department. So it was an adventure getting them used to it, trained in it. I think everyone really loved it. Then when we took it out to our participants, we kind of rotated to some camps and so just some different programs. Probably 95% of our participants had never, ever picked up a bow and arrow. So it was definitely a really cool component that we had already started to kind of implement, but then we just did it on a wider scale with this grant. And before the grant, so we would implement the archery with like smaller groups, again, with youth. We did it with some families. It was a really cool family activity, and even our seniors. One of my favorite stories is we had a blind senior that actually did the archery and hit the target. So she did better than some of our other staff. With the grant, what we did is we had the staff were certified by the National Archery in the Schools program. And so staff went through the full training and we had staff that were trained to train. So it was a really great program for us. And then prior to the excursions, we did the archery actually outside right there off the river. Staff taught archery to the participants in our gyms at the community centers. So they would rotate through the community centers and spend a week or two really starting with the basics. And just like the kayaking is really emphasizing safety. And so really starting with like strings and how to hold your hands and making sure we're the right size bows. So really starting with that first step, and then let's get them outside. And then at the excursions, staff set up different challenges and contests for participants to compete against each other, and even challenge the kids to staff versus kids contests. I got beat significantly or really bad by multiple kids. And so they definitely learned stuff from our staff because I went out there and they really showed me what was going on and what I needed to still learn. So we'll see what happens this summer because I'm going to challenge some more kids. So I'm going to kick it over to Grant to talk about the other component that we had.
Thanks, Sarah. So when the kids were not on the water in the kayaks, or when they were not practicing archery, we had a third station, and that was conservation and nature education. And essentially, we had staff from our natural resources division, primarily education coordinators from our natural areas team. We had an ecologist on site a couple of days. Several days we had a biologist from our natural areas team on site as well. And what they did is engage the students in a tabletop watershed model education initiative, which basically it's to help explore, to help showcase how stormwater runoff carries pollutants downstream through our watersheds. It was like I said, a tabletop watershed model, and we would use Kool-Aid to serve as the polluted water, if you will, and they would pour that into the watershed model, and then use spray misters to symbolize rainfall, and that rain would then that additional water would catch the pollutants, kind of wash them down through the watershed, and then we would have sponges, and the sponges would serve as wetlands that would help kind of soak up and absorb the pollutants. And so it was a nice demonstration to kind of help the kids better understand that, hey, we're in this watershed. We're doing these activities today in this watershed. This is also how this watershed works, right? In addition to the tabletop model, our instructors would take the kids down to the river with dip nets, and I guess collect water samples in the dip nets, bring them back, and you can kind of see in this image here in this slide, one of the students is looking through a magnifying glass at the water samples that were collected from the river, and they would really get a close-up look at some of the organisms and try to identify what they were looking at. I mean, these are things that the kids had probably, many of these kids had never done before. And it was a really kind of an eye-opening experience for them. A lot of them really got a kick out of it. And then after all that, after sort of the education component, there was an arts and crafts component where we had basically these fish prints, these rubber fish models that the students would lay paper over and then paint on and then hang up to dry. And they could take those with them at the end of the day. So they had something that they were learning about, the habitat, the biology of the riparian ecology, and then able to take that, take that home with them when they were done at the end of the day. Next slide. I think it's Lynn.
Thanks, Grant. Yeah. So this is kind of some information on the route that we used for our Aim to Float program. For those of you that are familiar with San Antonio, this is kind of southwest, south central San Antonio. This is the San Antonio River, and we tried several different routes, so we kind of perfected this route. Some of you, if you've kayaked this area before, there's kind of a chute north of here that we tried to start there and come down, but then there was a lot of logistics with bringing boats back and forth. So we ended up using Acequia Park, which is one of our parks, as kind of a staging area. And then the San Antonio River Authority actually has responsibility for the San Antonio River. So we coordinated with them. We put the boats in kind of down near the dam area and went upstream a little bit. As Grant said, it's about a mile to a mile and a half round trip. And then they would be coming back downstream so that hopefully, like when they were a little more tired, they would have to use a little less energy. We did have to help a few participants along the way, but we had, as you can see at the top there, we had a pavilion where we provided lunches and snacks, kind of a break area for the kids that provided some shade as well. We had our archery area set up in the park. And then as you came down the hill, we had our conservation station, which is where they did a lot of the education. They could go right down to the river from there and collect their water samples and then go back to the station and look at what was in the water. And then the kayak launch, of course, was right there as well along the river where they actually got in the kayaks. And the blue indicates kind of the route that we took. The water, of course, when you're out in the water, there's no shade. As we went under the major thoroughfare of Military, that's a major street here in town, that had a bridge. So there was a little bit of shade. So we would kind of pause there and kind of collect people and find out where everybody was, and then go on down. And again, another pause point on the way back that provided some shade and a little bit of a respite for the kids. So this ended up being a great route for us. This is also part of TPW's Texas Paddling Trails Network. And so that was using one of the features that they have as part of their mission to get people out on some of those trails. So we can go, I think, now to the video to give you just a little snapshot of some of the information that's in the program. Looks like it started in the middle.
Here, I can go back to the beginning, but could y'all hear it?
No, we couldn't hear any sound.
I will go back to the beginning and I will share the sound.
We get here at about 8:30 and we are at Asakia Park. Start unloading, bring the kayaks, set up the canopies throughout the park to have some cooling spots. And then we set up archery. And the kids come in.
Kayaking! And have fun. Kayaking, archery, enjoying nature, just being out there with everyone. It's just nice and lovely.
I love paddling.
I don't know where the water is, but today we came here to have fun and enjoy ourselves.
The Aim to Float program is supported by a grant from the Texas Parks and Wildlife Department, and there's 3 components. There is a archery component, there's a kayaking component, and there's also a conservation component.
When my boss came up to me, he's like, hey, we got this grant, who wants to be involved? And I'm just like, me, for sure. Like, it's perfect. I would love to teach kids how to do these things, especially because I didn't get a chance growing up to do these things. Mostly I like teaching these kids these skills for the bonding experience. Being able to be there with them, show them these things, and help them experience things that they didn't know that they could do.
It was my first time kayaking. It was kind of scary because I thought I was gonna fall in, but I didn't. Mandy helped me through sink.
I was pretty excited to go on the kayak. Although when I got on it, it started wobbling a bit. I'm like, oh, I might fall.
They overcome some challenges and fears. So just them getting that component and being able to get over the fear of getting in an open body of water, I think that's a life skill that they'll never forget.
I'm really glad that they're here to help me with this stuff, especially because this is kind of my first time really doing it. I like going really fast, just keep pedaling, going zooming towards the water. I see all the scenery. I really like the scenery. I like looking at the trees.
When we're paddling, you can see all the sights around you. It's so beautiful to me.
They set up the target. We've got about 6 to 8 people at a time. We teach them how to hold the bow, how to aim, and try to get them the strength to pull it back. At first, they're kind of shaking, they're scared. I'm just like, just let it go. Just let the arrow fly. And so they do, and it's just they instantly, every time, just look at me with this biggest smile on their face. It was so good to just see the kids and the camaraderie that they have. They're super excited when somebody hits the target, and it's just this joy.
Start screaming, start being excited, and turn around, look at my friends, be like, yeah, I did that.
To see the kids
support each other through the accomplishment of actually hitting the target and sometimes hitting the bullseye. It's just amazing.
Just exciting. Feels like, oh, wow, I get to do something I've never done before. Like, this is something new to try.
We have natural areas that comes out. They set up their watershed model. They set up their water conservation education.
So that the camp participants can see the impact of rainwater, stormwater runoff into our creekways and waterways. For organization, I think one of the really cool intrinsic values in this type of program is the collaboration through a multidisciplinary effort. When you think about how large of an organization we are, we're bringing these teams together that otherwise would not work together on a routine basis. I love when I'm able to come out and see the hard work of the team in action. The kids, the smiles on their faces. For a lot of them, this is a first-time experience. You don't know if you like something or not until you try it.
It's really fun. It feels like once you do it, you're gonna want to do it again.
It's just great to see smiles on their faces is absolutely worth it.
Aim to Float is more about learning the hard skills of archery and kayaking. It's about kids learning the soft skills of friendship, being able to help each other out, and that's something that you can only learn through being given the experience of doing this with a group of people.
For more information, visit our website and follow us on social media.
So that's just a little video that gives you a glimpse into the program in action. So hopefully that helps with a little bit more understanding of what the program is. Now we're going to talk a little bit about the grant. So if you're not familiar with this particular grant with TPW, the co-op grant is, as I mentioned earlier, the Community Outdoor Outreach Program co-op grant. And they provide funding for tax-exempt organizations. So it could be a municipality, it could be a school district, it could be a nonprofit organization. And they're looking for people that are going to implement programming that engages underrepresented populations in TPW mission-oriented outdoor recreation, conservation, and environmental education activities. And so it's really a great opportunity. These grants can be up to $100,000, and there's no match requirement. So you don't have to have any type of matching funds in order to get one of these grants. If you're not familiar with the Texas Parks and Wildlife grant system, they do have an online system that you have to use to apply for these grants. And they use that to administer the grants as well. So all of the grant administration is done through that website also. These grants, in particular with the co-op grants, those are due, applications are due November of each year, November 1st of each year. And then the awards are announced in March of the following year. So that kind of gives you an idea of like when to think about your programming, what you might want to apply for, and then implementation after the award. And then just a few things, there's some information on legal and eligibility information. For the grant application, you'll also want to provide, obviously your project information and details and a budget. And we're going to share our budget a little bit later with this, just kind of some basic information about our budget. And then we had some just ongoing communication with TPW. So we're going to talk a little bit about some of our goals in a minute. And so we had some changes with some of our goals. And so we worked that out. We made some amendments with them. The same thing with some of our budget items. So just making sure you're keeping in communication with them. This is also, it is a reimbursement grant. So you do have to spend the funds first and then submit for the reimbursement. It's not necessarily a timely process. It doesn't take a long time, but there is a review process and you do have to submit for reimbursement. And then there's quarterly and annual reporting that is required. So you can, as you go along, you'll have to submit quarterly kind of what your activity's been. And there were times where we didn't have the program activity going on, but we were doing purchasing or marketing or things behind the scenes. So that's what we reported for the activity for that quarter. and I'll get into the budget in a little bit more, but it can cover personnel, it can cover food and travel, recreation equipment and supplies, training, like those kinds of things are all eligible for you to apply for this grant. So we're going to go to the next slide. And one of the things that the grant does require you to do is provide some SMART goals for your program that you are applying for. And so when you look at SMART goals, obviously that's, you're looking at specific, measurable, achievable, or attainable, the ones that are relevant, and then time bound. All of them are, time bound in the sense that you have to complete them within the grant period. So you have to be finished by the time that the grant period expires. But, you look at other elements of being time bound as well. So we selected that we were going to connect 200 children from six local community centers in low-income and minority neighborhoods to 2 weeks of hands-on learning experiences in archery, kayaking, and water safety and conservation. And so we broke down kind of how we were going to do that. And then we kind of put together a program plan of how that was going to occur. You do want to be careful when you're putting these SMART goals in and make sure that they are realistic. They are things that you can attain. You don't want to be, pie in the sky, right? But you don't want to also be like way too low. You want to, really look at, what you can achieve, because they're going to be looking at your application and grading part of your application based on the SMART goals. And then when it comes time, if you're awarded the grant, they're going to ask you to provide your progress toward these goals, right? And so you have to then show, how did I meet these goals, or in some cases exceed these goals? And so you want to, again, be specific enough that you have what you need in here, but you want to also make sure that it's attainable for you. We knew that we were going to need some, training. So we offered, the water safety lessons and the archery lessons to our kids. We did the 5 summer trips with the youth, with their hands-on experience in the kayaking and in the conservation. We coordinated the excursions on the San Antonio Mission Reach. This was one of our goals that we actually had an amendment to, because we were originally going to do one excursion to one of our natural areas and then one excursion to the San Antonio River. But with the drought, our natural area just became really, it wasn't safe and a really good experience to have anybody out there with the water level so low. So we changed all of our excursions to be out to the San Antonio River, so Mission Reach area. So just that's kind of thing you have to be careful of what you're putting, how specific you are. You want to be specific enough, but you have to be careful that as you make changes and modifications to your program during implementation, you're aware of how that impacts your goals and how you're going to be reaching those goals. And then again, certifying our staff members and in some of the training that we did. And now I'm going to turn it over to Sarah, and she's going to talk a little bit about how we actually exceeded some of our goals.
I know I got the fun slide, right? Lynn gets to tell you about the goals, and I get to tell you how we exceeded those goals. So yeah, so I think we did a fantastic job with this. This is one of those things that we had wanted to connect 200 children to in our low income minority neighborhoods, and that's mainly what we serve here in San Antonio anyway. And we connected 291 kids, so definitely went above and beyond that. Offering again the archery to 200 is what we had. We got to 291. Coordinated 18 summer trips. We had aimed for 5, and instead we did 18. So we just blew that goal out of the water, which is a testament to our staff and all the planning that went into this, that we realized really what we could do, and connecting the 258 youth to that hands-on experience. Same thing with the 18 summer kayaking excursions. We had said we were going to do the 5. Instead, we got 18 summer kayaking excursions in. Staff can definitely testify to this because they were very, very tired after year 2. We looked at certifying staff, and we said we were going to certify, I think it was 15 staff members. Instead, we did 30. We had staff that when this, I think you saw in the video, Mandy was like, we just asked staff who's interested. And I mean, hands went up all around the room. And these are folks that had never even participated in it, but they're like, teach me. And I want to teach these kids because I think they knew as an experience growing up, it was something they didn't have. And if they can then learn this, but then give that experience to these youth, it's just a testament to our staff and their willingness to get certified and then turn around and teach our kids. And then, you know, we did rely on our lifeguards and our pool staff, which is fantastic. We have that. But then we asked our recreation staff that were more on my team that work at community centers and do programming, anybody want to try being a lifeguard or get certified? And they were at the pool every single week practicing, and it just wasn't something they had done before. And we got staff that's not their normal job function. They're not at a pool. And they went through the certification, they got the training, and they were able to use it both summer. So, I mean, they did more than I could do, that's for sure. So it was really fantastic to see. So we definitely were able to exceed goals in that respect. So yeah, just kind of kudos, not to us, but to the staff out there that did it.
So next slide, of course. So staff training. I think we've touched on this multiple times throughout this, but you know, we got to, you know, we were all excited about doing this, and then we were kind of like, okay, well, who's done this before? And there were a few hands, right? And then it was like, you know, okay, well, who wants to do this? And there were a whole bunch of hands. So we were like, okay, we need to do some staff training. So you know, we sought out some resources for our kayaking training. You know, we reached out to the San Antonio River Authority. We reached out to REI. They did some training for us. As Grant mentioned, there was some online canoeing training that we took advantage of. So just like really looking for what resources we had available and trying to find that to give our staff that extra boost of confidence when they started taking kids out on the water. You know, some of them had been kayaking before and really enjoyed kayaking. Others had never been in a kayak before. And so, you know, they were enthusiastic about it and wanted to do it, but they just didn't have the skills and knowledge, much less teaching kids that. So we really did a lot of training with those groups to get that accomplished. You know, the archery was another thing. As Sarah mentioned, you know, we had started a little bit of archery, but we hadn't had a lot of archery programs. And so this really expanded what we were able to do with our archery programming. And some of our staff really took to it and loved it. And, you know, Sarah said they'd be out there challenging the kids and, you know, challenging each other. And we're like, remember, it's about the kids. Remember, it's about the kids, you know. But they had a lot of fun with it, which is what you hope to see with your staff, right? When they're having fun, your kids are going to have fun. But they got trained through TPW, through the National Archery in Schools program certification. And we even had a couple of our staff that were interested, and they became train the trainers because they were so interested in the certification. So now they're able to train as we get new staff coming in each summer and throughout the year, they're able to train those staff members. So that was really great for us. And I think the staff have also alluded to the cross training that went on. So one of the things that was unique for us with this program and this grant opportunity was we brought together 3 different areas that don't always work together on a daily basis. And that was our natural resources area, our recreation, specifically with our summer youth program, and our aquatics area. And so we did a lot of cross training with those staff. So for example, Sarah mentioned our rec staff, and I'm fairly certain we even had a couple of the natural area staff. They got trained as lifeguards. You know, that's not part of their regular duties that they do every day, but, you know, they understood that, you know, safety for this program was really important. And they're like, hey, you know, sign me up for the training too. I'm willing to devote my time and get certified as a lifeguard. And, you know, some of them had to practice their swimming skills a little bit. They were a little rusty, but they did it, they committed to it, and they got their certifications. You know, we also had, our natural area staff, a couple of them came to the archery training, so they participated in that. We had some of our aquatic staff that were trained as lifeguards. They came out and did some of the kayaking training because although they had their open water certification that we did with them, they didn't have a lot of familiarity with kayaking themselves. So we had them cross-train and participate in that training. So we really tried to prepare our staff to make sure that, safety was our top priority, that everybody felt confident with their skills and understanding of all of what was going on in order to implement this program so that we had that safe environment for our kids. Next slide. So program budget, this is kind of a quick snapshot. But for us, our program budget, most of it was in supplies. And so, as you can see, the majority of the supplies, so that helped us purchase like kayaks, for example. So we purchased, I think it was almost 20 kayaks by the time we were all said and done. It may have been closer to 25 because we purchased some additional ones for practicing in the pool. We purchased some additional sizes. We had the tandem where a participant could ride with the staff if they were still a little nervous about being in the water or needed some additional help. So we had all of the kayaks that we purchased, all of the flotation vests, all of the paddles, all of the carts to wheel them back and forth. So all of the equipment that went with that. For the archery, it was all of the bows, the arrows, the targets, the backdrops. So all of the necessary archery equipment was purchased with that. For the education, we purchased the watershed models. We purchased the nets to go down and collect the specimens from the water, some of the magnifying equipment, some of the information charts. So all of that kind of equipment fell into supplies. In addition, all of our safety supplies were part of that as well. So any safety equipment, sunscreen, fans, bug spray, first aid kits. We made sure we had mobile first aid kits that went out on the kayaks. So if there was anything that happened, we had some supplies on the kayaks with the staff. So all of those types of things were what fell into the supplies and equipment category. We did have to do a little more detailed budget than what you see here for TPW for the grant application, but those are the kind of things that fell under supplies. For food and travel, we were able to provide the kids with meals like lunches and snacks when they were on the trip, lots of hydration. We did lots of water and Gatorade while they were out there to keep them hydrated. And then travel, we were able to pay for fuel and expenses. We have our own fleet of vans, so we were able to take advantage of that, but we were able to charge some of our fuel and some of our mileage to the grant for that. We were also very fortunate in that we had some donations for food. So we didn't have to purchase as much food as we originally thought we would have to purchase. So we were able to make some amendments and purchase some additional supplies after for the latter portion of our program. But again, that was something we worked out with TPW. We asked questions about could we make these amendments, and then we got the amendments approved before we made those purchases. And then you see training fees. We had some certification fees and instructor fees that were related to all of the training that we did with our staff, and the grant covered all of those expenses as well. So that's kind of a little bit about the budget, kind of the basics of it. And we're going to go into now some of the challenges that we had. I'm going to turn it over to Grant.
Thanks, Lynn. So obviously, when you have a new program like this, regardless of the size, regardless of the number of students that you have coming through to participate, you're going to have challenges, especially in the first year or so. And so we documented those challenges over the first couple of years, and we've learned from it. So I'm going to talk briefly about the challenges that we faced. And continue to face, on an annual basis. And then Sarah is going to talk about some of the lessons that we learned throughout this process on the next slide. But, obviously navigating the procurement process it was one of the key challenges. And that's primarily because of the timing of the grant, right? So, the grant applications are submitted in the fall, but the awards are not announced until the following, usually through Texas Parks and Wildlife, are not announced until the following March. And for a program that we were, that was geared toward summer participation, that did not leave us a lot of time for procurement of the resources and the equipment and the materials that we needed. And in fact, the first year after we were awarded the grant, we were scrambling. We were able to get the order in for the kayaks, But by week one of the actual program, we had kids coming down to the river. We did not yet have the kayaks, and so we had to reach out to our colleagues over at the San Antonio River Authority and borrow equipment from them. We borrowed some kayaks, we borrowed paddles. I think we had all of most of the life vests and most of the other equipment, but just because of the slow process of ordering things through the city, we just did not have the boats yet. And so we had the boats, I think, by week 2 or 3. And so we were ready to go by then. And since then, once we got the boats, it's been fine. But obviously that was a little bit of a challenge for us in the beginning. Additionally, I think kayaking and to some extent, right, also archery, they're not just intuitive activities, right? And so they can be difficult, they can be intimidating for people. And so, we're teaching people how to, hold the equipment. It's not just teaching them how to paddle and understand water safety or understand archery safety. It's how do we hold this equipment? How do we hold this? How do we shoot these arrows without harming ourselves, without harming people around us? How do we hold the paddle when we're in the boat? There's a proper way to hold it and to paddle. And so we taught people, how to sort of scoop, right, from their toe to their hip in the water. So they're moving in a straight line instead of paddling around in circles all day. Also, one size doesn't fit all. I think Lynn talked about the different sizes of the kayaks that we had to purchase. And we have a pretty standard size. The vast majority of our boats are the ones you see there in blue in that photo. But we also got some smaller kayaks because there were some really small students who were participating in the program, and these were just too big. The boats were just too big for them. We got smaller paddles. We had to outfit them with smaller or larger, in some cases, personal flotation devices with life vests that were the right sizes. And we had some students who were just not equipped to paddle by themselves at all. And so we got tandem boats, right? And we would partner them or pair them up with an adult, one of our staff members, who sat in the back. And so the students were up front, and they had I guess the luxury of being able to kind of coast along while the guide did all the work for them and paddling. But not everybody was able to really paddle on their own. And then just some of the logistical challenges that we faced, and these are things that we face every year, right? Making sure that we have everybody who is going to be participating in the program from a staff perspective is trained properly, because we have new staff every summer. And we have a lot of the same holdovers who love this program and will participate in it as long as they can every year, I guarantee, because it is so much fun. But making sure that everybody who is participating is trained properly in archery and in kayak and water safety. Scheduling, we're a full-time staff in a very busy Parks and Recreation department in the 7th largest city in the country, and making sure that we've got coverage on a daily basis, throughout this 6-week or 7-week process over the course of the summer is tricky. And so we've got to there's scheduling hurdles that we have to address every year as we're putting this together. Transportation and hauling the equipment was, those are other logistical challenges. We've got to make sure that we are transporting the kids from the community centers from their summer programs to Acequia Park, to the water and back every day. But additionally, we're also bringing the equipment from one of our natural area parks down to the river and back every day. There's a lot of logistical challenges that exist with just bringing in 25 kayaks and all the equipment needed to make sure that everybody's safe on the water every day, and then loading it all back up at the end of the day and taking it back to the park and then doing the same thing over the next day. snacks and lunches, making sure that all the kids have enough fuel to participate in these programs. I mean, they're running around, they're paddling, they're practicing archery. It's a lot of fun, and you saw the happy faces in the video. But we've also got to make sure that they're eating and drinking enough water and staying hydrated and have enough fuel to keep doing what they're doing. And then, of course, finally, weather. I mean, it's hot and usually dry in the summer in San Antonio when we're doing this. But the first year we held the program, we had a series of summer rainstorms that came through, which included a lot of lightning and thunder. And every time somebody spotted lightning, we had to bring the kids out of water. We had to get them on dry land. We had to wait a certain amount of time before we were able to put them back in the boats and get them out in the water. Sometimes we had to cancel entirely because the storms were it was just too much lightning in the area. Over the course of a couple of hours. And so, these are all challenges that you face with a program of this size, just to make sure everybody stays safe and the program is a success. Next slide.
Okay, yeah, I'm gonna talk a little bit about some of the lessons learned. Right. And so first off, when you're creating the grant application, you want to really pay attention to the goals that are outlined. I mean, you're making your goals, so make sure that you pay attention to those, because TPWD is going to hold your organization to those exact goals. So you really want to make sure they're realistic and that you're very mindful of what you're putting on paper. You want to try to itemize the budget that you're requesting when you submit your grant application. I mean, they will allow amendments, but they have to be approved. They need to be submitted before you purchase things. So really paying attention to the budget and itemizing your requests. And then I did tell you that we exceeded our goal with how many participants that we were able to take out on the excursion. But we did realize after that first year that, capping the number that we take each week just makes it a better experience for staff and honestly for the kids. A lot of our kids really want that one-on-one or as low of staff to participant ratio as possible. And it just gives them a better experience. So, I think our eyes were, I can't really bigger than our stomach, but you know what I mean? It was just one of those, like, we were so enthusiastic. So by the second you were like, okay, let's cap it and make it really just that meaningful experience for the kids. So we're in San Antonio, Texas. If you haven't been here, it is like 110 degrees in the summer. So it is very, very hot. That first year staff, I know by the end of the summer, I mean, we had some really great tans going on, but they were definitely exhausted. So that second year we said, what we're going to do is we're going to take a break midway through, like take a week off of doing the excursions, let staff kind of take a breather, be in the air conditioning a little bit longer, and then, we'll hit the ground running again. So we really found like that midweek break really helps staff, like physically, but mentally as well, because it's a lot that goes into the program. Another thing, not all kids like to drink water. Actually, not all of our staff like to drink water. But it became a mandatory, you will take a bottle of water with you. We try to get them to bring, reusable bottles, bring your own kind of thing. But if they did not, we're giving them water and you're going to take it in the boat. And you would hear staff as they were going down the river, have you drank water yet? Have you drank your water? Let me see your water bottle. So it's really making sure they stay hydrated, because we did have a couple heat incidents where kids just got overheated. They weren't drinking water. I mean, they're in the direct sunlight, like Lynn showed you the route. So I'm really being mindful of that. And then making sure the excursions were as early in the day as we could get them out there. Again, it is very hot in the summer here. So the earlier we start, the better, because then we could get off the river and into the shade before that direct heat really hit. Grant kind of talked about this a little bit, is making sure we had different sizes that were available for the kayaks. And honestly, we did the same thing with the archery. We had different size of the bows so that it would fit the different size of our kids. And same thing with the life preservers, just making sure they have the appropriate sized kids come in all sizes. So just being mindful of that. A purchase that I think was like just invaluable and that we use for now a whole bunch of stuff is we bought these misting fans. So those were out there. So it's like one of those things that they were portable, they're rechargeable. We take them out there, and it was just an opportunity. Again, if you're starting to feel warm, get in front of the misting fan and take advantage of those. And then, we had a very unique situation where we had an active shooter in the park. It wasn't near the kids, but it was in the area. Park police here in San Antonio, our San Antonio police department as well, were all responding. They kept our staff very much in the know, had everyone in a safe space. Staff were communicating with all of us at the office and letting us know what's going on. But it was one of those like, okay, we need an emergency action plan just so that you just never know what's going to happen. That was just a crazy situation. Hopefully something like that never happens again, but let's be as prepared as possible. And we also did safety briefings. So at the beginning of every excursion, staff got together and went through like hydration breaks, water, where's everyone going to be stationed? Where are the different areas that we're going to be? So really taking advantage of those safety briefings to just kind of remind people. I mean, we get so in the midst of where we're just doing. And so it's just a good time to sit down. If you have a question, ask that question, but have that safety briefing. So yeah, those were some of I think they're really valuable lessons that we learned in the program.
So that's kind of the end of our formal presentation. We have our contact information at the end as well. So I don't know if anybody has any questions at this point for any of us. We're happy to answer any questions that you have.
And y'all, we have a small enough group, so if you want to take yourselves off mute to ask your question, we can definitely do that.
Hi, this is Keely. I had a question. You talked about the kids coming from the local community centers. How exactly did you get the kids registered? I'm the youth activities director with the Alamo Area Master Naturalist chapter, and we are trying to come up with a plan to offer programs to youth in underserved communities, and knowing how to start, where to go, how do you sign the kids up and get a commitment? If you could just elaborate on that a little bit, please.
Sarah, you want to field that one?
Yeah, I was gonna say I can. I saw you on. I didn't see you muted, so I thought maybe you were gonna grab it. So these kids were all part of our. So what we have is a summer youth program, and so for us, that's an 8-week day camp for the kids. So they actually sign up and register to participate in this 8-week day camp. So it's really kind of a captured audience that we have that we're able to use for this. And so those kids that were signed up, we identify the age groups that we're really interested in for the older age group, just because it's like for their abilities. And then we rotated through the different centers. So we did different centers each year. So we don't do the same centers. So kind of did a rotation. But again, for us as a captive audience, outside of summer though, we've been offering kayaking, we've offered archery, not as a bundled group, but as like kind of day excursions or as an activity at the center. And honestly, we just like get out the information to the community for the year-round programs and just let them know this is what's coming, and have them sign up and register ahead of time. We had an archery program over at one of our community centers on the north side, and we had 100 people show up. So that was when we were like, okay, we need a cap registration because we're not going to do 100 people in a gym shooting bows and arrows. So we're kind of blessed in the fact that, our summer program, last summer, we had 47 locations with our community centers and our summer and our school sites that we partner with. So we have a very robust program, but we do have our in-house community centers that we can offer programming at. And again, we have 4 adult and senior centers. So we've actually offered the kayaking for our seniors. So seeing the seniors going down the river and going down this little chute that we have, the pure joy on their face, it really is something. And then our community center. So we just kind of do a registration ahead of time. We have a really great graphics guy. He gets us some really great marketing materials. We'll have them sign up ahead of time. But with the aim to float, we just use those camp kids. And so they were already going to be there during the day. Found out their interest if they were interested, and then that's how we were able to offer it to them.
So that sounds great. if we wanted to assist, I mean, offer some short programs through SAPAR, I mean, we work a lot with Nicole McLeod. Um, who would I go to say, listen, we could provide trained experts to, give presentations or hands-on or do something with some of these youth, because I know our junior master naturalist program is very popular, and just trying to reach other areas and not just, well, I'm just going to go ahead and say it, the middle class white kids up north side of San Antonio. It's we want to maybe work with the YMCAs and the community centers. I just don't know, uh, trying to go it alone, or I think I would rather partner with organizations that have established programs. And yours sounds amazing. You've got great participation. And if we could help you expand your program a little, that would be, in my mind, a win-win for everybody.
Yeah, I can see sort of two opportunities there. I think, in Sarah's former role as the manager over the recreation side of the house, I think that there may be an opportunity there, and Sarah can either be the person you speak to, because I don't think her old position has been filled yet, or she may know who to connect with. It may be Naomi, I'm not sure. But also, Keely, I think that we have three full-time education coordinators within our natural areas division, or our natural resources division, who you may or may not know from working. I mean, we've got a in the natural areas team. We've got a pretty strong relationship with Palat and the folks from the Master Naturalists here in town. So. If you want to reach out to me, I think our contact information was posted on that last slide. If you want to reach out to me via email, I'm happy to put you in touch with some of the folks from the education side of the house for our natural areas. But we can also connect you with folks from the recreation side who oversee the community centers too. So we can have that conversation offline pretty easily.
Okay, thanks, Grant. I mean, Talat and I talk to her all the time, and we're always looking for ways to help our partners and to get out there, because we know youth is the way to go. They're the ones that we need to engage now. So that's one of our goals, is to reach out to a wider audience.
Of course, yeah.
Great. We had one question in the chat that Lynn did a great job of answering, but Grant or Sarah, if you want to expand. The question is, how did y'all choose doing kayaking / archery? They're building a new community and family program to connect audiences, and they're wondering, did y'all hear from community members that these activities would be a good one to add?
Yeah, I think for us it's kind of trial and error, right? You're just like, what's really cool that's out there, and then what is it that we want to do? And we had a lot of really cool new staff that came in with really great ideas. And in my former role as a recreation manager, I thought one of my favorite things to get to do is just say yes to as many ideas as possible, right? I don't want to be the bearer. I want to be like let's go for it kind of thing. And so I think a lot of, like, especially the archery, we had some staff that had done that in an outdoor program that they had done, I guess, in college. I know I had done that right out of college. I worked at a camp where we did archery, so I was always gung ho, let's go for it. And so that kind of was generated from staff. We talked about kayaking too. I mean, we have the San Antonio River here, and so we had partnered a couple times in the past with the River Authority, and they allowed us, not just in this program, but to take kids out in their kayaks. And we really thought that was a cool program. And so we did have some extra money in our budget. And it was like, okay, what do we want to invest in? And instead of investing in those things that, I mean, you always have to have construction paper and markers and basketballs and all of that, but those are you can only use them for so long. We're like, what are those bigger ticket items that we did have this little bit of money that we spend on? And talking, a lot of this was staff, and then staff would go back and talk to the kids at the community centers for us and just say, hey, if we were to offer archery, would you do it? And a lot of kids are like, what is archery? And you're like, with the bows and arrows. And they're like, what? And they're like, I would try that. And then same with the kayaking, it's like what's kind of like canoeing. You're in a boat and you're paddling, so staff came up with the ideas. For us, it was a great way to invest some resources. And these are things that, I mean, like I said, we use them year round now. And we don't just use them for just for this age of group of kids. We're doing the young kids. We have families coming out learning how to do some of these together. And it's a great family bonding experience. So these two things kind of came out. And then Lynn brought us the grant idea because Lynn's team is fantastic and finds all these grants. And they're like, okay, we're going to give us some money. And then it became, okay, well, how can we obviously want to get the grant? So we've got to make it as enticing as possible. Grabbing Grant's team that are so talented, and we do a lot of collaboration, but nothing like this. So this was, I think it was a really cool opportunity. I know our director was so stoked that so many people in the department came together to make this happen. So a lot of this was kind of staff generated, but we try and do needs assessments and almost want assessments with the community. Like, what do you want to see? What can we bring to you? So it's a little bit of both.
Yeah, and to add to that, we originally thought that this might be viable down on the Medina River. We have one of our natural area parks, Medina River Natural Area, on the south side of San Antonio, and the Medina River runs through the park. And we originally thought this would be great. We'll be able to bring kids out to Medina River Natural Area. We'll do this program down there. But like Lynn mentioned in one of the early slides, the water level was so low because of the drought that we've been in, that it just didn't really work out down there. Plus the river is extremely narrow in certain parts, and there are a lot of snakes. I'll be honest, there are a lot of snakes down there. So that probably would have scared a few folks off, I think. But so we pivoted. We were able to pivot with the help from the River Authority and use the San Antonio River, which is a great location. It's been really great. And like Sarah said, there was a lot of staff input. That I don't even remember who came up with the name Aim to Float, but it was like the minute we heard it, it was great. I wanted to call the program Surf and Turf at first, but it was shot down pretty quick. But Aim to Float just made a lot of sense. I mean, the minute we heard it, we were like, oh yeah, that's it. This is going to be great. And it has been. It's been a wild success.
Great. Thank you all so much. We are at time. Just a couple quick announcements. I did put an evaluation in the chat. Y'all wouldn't mind filling that out. A lot of us here are work where evaluation is really important for our work. So please fill that out. And then our next webinar is Embracing Nature, Integrating Outdoor Learning Principles into Education. And so the link for that webinar is in the chat as well. But thank you so much, Lynn, Grant, and Sarah, for your time today. I really appreciate it. And we look forward to seeing y'all when we come to the summit in December. So thank you so much.
Thank you all so much.